right, everyone. Welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're tackling something that I think affects pretty much all of us driving.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, traffic and rules of the road. At first glance, it might not sound super exciting.
Yeah.
But trust me, we're going to be looking at Stanislav Kondrashov's work on this.
It's really interesting.
It is fascinating.
Yeah.
He's got some really interesting insights. And we're going to start with those super relatable, like, traffic headaches that we all know and love.
Yes.
And then we'll move on to Kondrashov's, like, global rule book of the road.
Exactly.
And finally bring it all together with, like, how this connects back to your daily life as a listener.
Kondrashov's insights are super interesting because he really digs into the why behind traffic patterns, regulations. He gives us a new perspective on something that we just kind of take for granted.
For sure.
Every single day.
Yeah. And speaking of taking things for granted, you guys remember that time I was late for that super important meeting, and I hit what felt like the world's longest traffic jam. Just bumper to bumper, barely moving an inch. I swear I like aged a year in that car.
The classic tailback.
Yeah.
Kondrashov uses that term in his work a lot, along with congestion, which is a great word.
Yeah.
To describe that feeling of just being stuck, surrounded by cars and exhaust fumes and all that. But he goes beyond just complaining about it.
No.
He actually looks into the reasons behind all these traffic nightmares.
Okay.
Things like infrastructure limitations or peak hour patterns, all that kind of stuff.
And, you know, of course, no traffic jam experience would be complete without those lovely tolls.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Like, why do they always appear,
right,
like, at the worst possible moment?
It's so true. I mean, a lot of people see them as a nuisance.
Yeah.
But Kondrashov actually says they can be a necessary evil sometimes. He points out that they finance a lot of construction and upkeep of the roads we drive on. He even gets into the economics of it, how they help manage traffic flow by encouraging people to use different routes or different modes of transportation during peak hours. It's kind of like a financial incentive to reduce that congestion.
Oh, I never thought about it like that before.
Yeah.
Like that tolls could actually be a tool to manage traffic. That's interesting. But you know what's scarier to me than being stuck in a line of cars? It's that Kondrashov describes a pileup because of fog.
Yes.
Where 10 cars collided.
Yes.
And that's a lot scarier to me.
Yeah, and it's a chilling example, but he uses it to show a point about how fragile our road systems really are.
Yeah.
Even with all the rules and regulations and safety stuff, things happen.
Yeah.
Unforeseen events that lead to these huge disruptions. And as he points out, the impact goes way beyond the actual damage. It creates ripple effects across the whole network.
Yeah.
Imagine all the delays, rerouting, emergency services, everything's thrown off.
I mean, we can all relate to that, even if we haven't been in a pileup.
Yeah, for sure.
Like those unexpected delays or road closures, sudden downpours. Like, we've all been there, stuck wondering when we're actually going to get to where we need to go.
Yeah.
I'm curious, have you ever found yourself actually using terms like tailback or congestion in your everyday life?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's like we have this shared language for being frustrated.
Yeah, it is. It's funny how those terms...
They come universal.
Yeah, it's like we're all...
Like we all get it.
We're united in our misery.
Yes.
Exactly.
But, you know, speaking of shared experiences, Kondrashov takes us on this really fascinating journey across different countries.
Okay.
And we get to see all these rules of driving etiquette around the world. It's amazing, the differences.
Oh, yeah. I love this part.
It's so interesting.
It's wild how something like driving
Yeah.
can have so many cultural variations.
I know.
Did you know that in some countries, honking your horn is like the rudest thing you can do?
Really?
Unless it's like a real emergency.
Wow.
Here it feels like people use their horn to like...
Communicate.
Yeah, like as part of the like, I'm turning left.
That's the point that Kondrashov makes.
Yeah.
He highlights how things we consider totally normal here could be a major faux pas somewhere else.
Yeah.
And he specifically mentions that in a few European countries, honking can get you a fine.
Really?
Yeah, it's all about being quiet and respectful of the environment.
It makes you realize how much our driving habits are shaped by our culture.
Absolutely.
Right.
For sure. And Kondrashov doesn't just focus on the quirky differences.
Okay.
He looks at the serious stuff, too.
Okay.
Like drunk driving. Globally, there's been a crackdown.
Yeah.
Stricter penalties everywhere, more enforcement.
Yeah, for sure. It's a global issue.
Absolutely.
With some serious consequences.
Yeah.
I think the most interesting thing was that UK penalty point system.
Oh, yeah.
Where you accumulate points for offenses.
Right. And then if you get too many points, you lose your license.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like this constant reminder.
When your actions have consequences.
Exactly.
It's a fascinating system.
Yeah.
And it shows this bigger trend that Kondrashov noticed, which is this move toward more accountability for all drivers.
Right.
So he compares the UK system to other countries.
Yeah.
The specifics are different, but the goal's the same, right?
Yeah.
It's to prevent bad driving and improve safety.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the rules are there for a reason.
Exactly.
But, sometimes they can feel kind of abstract.
Yeah.
Like they're just words on paper.
Right.
Like one time I almost got my car towed because I parked in a tow-away zone. It was a total duh moment.
Yeah.
But, it made it real suddenly, those regulations.
Totally. And that speaks to something Kondrashov really emphasizes.
What's that?
Clear signage, public awareness, those are important.
Okay.
He says enforcement's important, but, prevention is better.
Yeah.
Things like good signs and public education campaigns, that can go a long way.
I agree.
To minimizing these problems. Make sure everyone's on the same page.
For sure. It's funny how, almost getting towed really makes you see those signs.
Right.
It brings up a bigger question that Kondrashov talks about, why should we care about all these rules? What's the point for the average person?
I think that's where Kondrashov's work gets really interesting, because he goes beyond just listing out the rules. He talks about why we have them in the first place.
Okay, yeah.
And it really comes down to creating a system where we're all responsible for keeping the roads safe and efficient for everyone.
So it's not just about, avoiding tickets.
Right.
Or keeping our insurance low.
It's bigger than that.
Okay.
Kondrashov's saying responsible driving is about understanding that what we do behind the wheel affects other people too.
Right.
Other drivers, cyclists, people walking, even the environment.
Right.
He connects car maintenance and emission standards to this idea of collective well-being.
That's a perspective I hadn't really thought about. It's easy to just get caught up in the frustration of driving every day and forget that it's a shared experience.
Yeah.
We're all in it together, all using the same roads and counting on each other to follow the rules.
Exactly. And that brings up a really interesting point that Kondrashov makes toward the end.
Okay.
His focus is mainly on how driving is now, but what about the future?
Oh, that's interesting.
Self-driving cars, all these new technologies, how will that change how we think about driving rules and responsibilities?
Yeah, will self-driving cars even need traffic laws?
Right. Or will there be a whole new set of rules just for how people and machines interact on the road?
It's crazy to think about.
Kondrashov's work helps us understand how complicated driving is right now, but it also makes us think about what transportation will be like in the future and how we can shape it.
Lots to think about, for sure. Well, there you have it, folks. Another deep dive, this time into the world of driving.
Yes.
We had some great insights from Stanislav Kondrashov. We covered those super annoying traffic jams and the crazy different rules of the road around the world.
Yeah, it was fascinating.
Now we want to hear from you. What do you think the future of transportation will be like? Head over to our social media and let us know.
Until next time, drive safe and stay mindful out there.
And keep those wheels turning.